In this podcast episode, comedian Tim Dillon shares his candid and often controversial views on a wide range of topics, from the state of Disney and societal collapse to the influence of corporations and the political landscape. Dillon begins by expressing his strong feelings about Disney, criticizing the company for becoming lazy and emblematic of societal decline. He particularly targets adults who are obsessed with Disney World, describing their behavior as a form of emotional retardation that keeps them in a childlike state. Dillon then discusses the homogenizing effect of technology, noting that people are increasingly fed the same stimuli and lack unique experiences that come from interacting with diverse individuals. He highlights the isolation caused by technology, which has led to a lack of community and individuality. The conversation shifts to politics, with Dillon recounting his journey from being a supporter of the Iraq War and George W. Bush to questioning the official narratives of events like 9/11. He talks about reading books that opened his eyes to the complexities of power structures and the behind-the-scenes decision-making processes. He expresses skepticism about mainstream narratives, particularly in the context of conflicts like the one in Israel, questioning the emotional appeals used to justify violence and pointing out inconsistencies in foreign policy justifications. The conversation then shifts to the dysfunction in Los Angeles, focusing on the lack of accountability for the city's deteriorating conditions. Dillon criticizes the wealthy white population for their aimlessness and lack of societal contribution, contrasting it with the strong work ethic of the Mexican community. He highlights the disconnect between the meticulously managed digital world and the chaotic real world. Dillon and Carlson discuss the role of corporate landlords in driving up housing prices and displacing local residents. They criticize the lack of attention given to this issue and its impact on the economy and society. Dillon points out how foreign nationals, often with questionable backgrounds, purchase real estate in cities like New York and London, leading to inflated prices and a lack of affordable housing for the local population. The conversation also touches on the influence of corporations and the wealthy elite in shaping policies and narratives. Dillon and Carlson criticize the hypocrisy of individuals and institutions that claim to care about social issues while perpetuating harmful practices behind the scenes. They discuss the manipulation of public perception and the prioritization of profit over people's well-being. Dillon shares his humorous yet critical views on the boomer generation, describing them as selfish, materialistic, and shallow. He emphasizes their obsession with comfort and material possessions, recounting personal anecdotes about boomers he knows, and highlighting their lack of wisdom and tendency to prioritize their own needs over others. The discussion delves into the impact of the internet on decentralizing power and disrupting traditional institutions. Dillon and Carlson talk about cancel culture and the ways in which individuals like Louis C.K. have been targeted and vilified by the public. Dillon reflects on the need for resilience in the face of criticism and adversity, noting that facing hate and criticism can ultimately make a person stronger and more authentic. They touch on the importance of receiving honest feedback and criticism, even if it may be harsh or uncomfortable. Dillon discusses the role of journalists and media in shaping public perception and the challenges of being misrepresented or attacked for false reasons. He shares his experiences with journalists who sought to incorporate comedy into their work, highlighting the disconnect between their intentions and his expertise in the field. Dillon mentions the journalists and writers he admires and follows, including Andrew Sullivan, Seymour Hersh, and Matt Taibbi. He emphasizes the importance of reading a diverse range of perspectives, even those he may not agree with, to stay informed and engaged with current events. Dillon expresses his thoughts on the aggressive stance towards Russia taken by certain individuals in the media and political circles. He questions the deficit of purpose in the country and the push for conflict with Russia, highlighting the disconnect between the elites who advocate for war and the everyday struggles of working-class individuals. The conversation delves into the complexities of the ongoing conflict in Ukraine and the implications of potential military intervention. Dillon raises concerns about the lack of transparency in decision-making processes, and the potential consequences of escalating tensions with Russia. The conversation continues with a discussion on the need for political candidates to prioritize issues like home ownership and address the influence of powerful lobbying groups in shaping policy decisions. Dillon emphasizes the importance of promoting competition and supporting small businesses to foster a more dynamic and inclusive economy. Dillon expresses his concerns about the dominance of corporations in society, noting how they have taken over various aspects of daily life, from restaurants to hotels. He highlights the homogenization of businesses and the lack of diversity in the market, with everything looking the same and being controlled by a few major players. He also touches on the decline of small businesses and the shift towards owning a home as the new form of entrepreneurship. The conversation then moves towards the influence of technology on society, with Dillon sharing his views on the impact of social media platforms and the internet. He discusses the isolation and mental health issues that can arise from excessive use of technology, as well as the lack of accountability from tech companies in addressing these issues. Despite using technology for work, he emphasizes the importance of maintaining a healthy relationship with it and the value of connecting with people in person. As a comedian who frequently travels for shows, Dillon talks about his experiences on the road and how he avoids going crazy while constantly being on tour. He mentions the importance of connecting with friends and meeting new people in different cities, as well as the challenges that come with being away from home for extended periods. The conversation takes a humorous turn as Dillon shares anecdotes about his worst bombing experiences as a comedian, including performing at fundraisers in Long Island, where the audience showed utter disinterest in his jokes. He also discusses a controversial joke about Ukraine that received mixed reactions from audiences, highlighting the fine line comedians walk between pushing boundaries and offending people. Dillon reflects on the current state of comedy and the importance of comedians saying what they truly think. He believes that the best comedians are those who are funny and authentic, whether they are expressing their own opinions or creating characters. He notes the shift towards more freedom of speech on the internet compared to traditional media platforms, allowing comedians to be more candid and unfiltered in their comedy. The conversation ends on a more serious note as Dillon and Carlson discuss the current political and social climate, with concerns about the rise of totalitarianism and the potential threats to free speech. They ponder the possibility of a brief period of free speech before a potential onslaught of censorship and control by those in power. Despite the uncertainties of the future, Dillon remains hopeful that people will continue to speak out and challenge authority to maintain a sense of freedom and authenticity in society.